Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Let's Chat Live, a show where we do weekly podcasts and episodes to connect you with the voices behind the podcasts that you listen to and the podcasts that you should listen to. I am your host, Bree, producer of Let's Chat Media, and with me today, you already know his name. He is the one, the only, the Let's Chat podcast with Chris Revel's host, Chris Revel.
Today we have the opportunity to sit down with a longtime friend of Let's Chat, Kevin Gallagher, one of my oldest podcast friends. He has over 10 years of podcast experience. You may know Kevin from That Nerdy Kev and Real Awesome Pod. Recently, he branched off and made a show called Single Player, a solo RPG podcast. And oh my God, it's good. An actual play podcast focused on solo RPG experience. Woo woo! Let's bring him to the stream. Boom.
Boom.
Wait, is this live?
We're live, baby.
Hey. Oh, yeah. By the way, it was in the long notes that I sent you that you decided not to read.
So listen. So before we get officially started here,
People get you're live right now, just so you know.
No cussing.
13 and a half years I've been in this game. And for part of that time, I used to stream on. Have you guys heard of Stickcam? Do you remember Stickcam?
No,
we're not that cool.
Is that water on my laptop?
Yes,
I see water. Okay.
Yes, it is.
I don't know.
No,
it's beautiful. No, it just brings rustic look.
So the common thread in the chat for Stickcam when you were broadcasting live was, "Is this live?" So that's just some Stickcam humor.
Sorry, we were not ready for that. We're not that cool.
So I'd love to just jump right into that. Exactly like you said, 10 plus years experience. What did you say? 13 and a half. But, podcasting.
13 and a half.
How old's podcast?
I'm not counting. But
podcasting is 17 years at best, depending on who you ask, maybe even 15.
I mean, I think the term podcast hasn't been around maybe 15 years, I think is the term podcast, but radio shows have been doing webcasts since the early aughts.
Yeah, I remember that whole internet radio stuff. I don't recall the gentleman's name, but I know one of the people who created podcasts was a former MTV VJ, which I always thought was really interesting. So 13 and a half years later, how many podcasts later? Wow.
Yeah, you have the Nerdy Kev, and you have
Well, no. That Nerdy Kev is not a podcast. That's a handle. That's Kev.
That's just you.
It's just this.
That's Kev ripping off Kevin Smith.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Third rate Kevin Smith all the way.
That's a good rate to be.
Yeah, I aim low. Keep the bar low.
No, I love it. We're both Kevin Smith fans. But no, 13 and a half years, so who's doing shows back then? How did you even know what a podcast was? So what years, we need some math here. What year is this?
Oh no, 2020.
2007.
Okay.
July 1st, 2007 is when the show launched. The first show I did launched. We started recording probably in, I don't know, June, May of that year. We went into pre-production months early because back then we had. I mean, I was a arrogant host back then, and I just used a computer.
No.
I just used my computer and a Logitech headset, but our producer had me, co-host, himself, a guest, sound machine. So he had 5 or 6 computers all hooked up to a mixer to make the magic.
Wow.
And it took me until, I don't know, 2 years ago to say, oh, let me just invest in a Zoom to kind of produce everything.
Yeah, we've been talking about that.
Yeah, I used to literally, when I did shows with guests in person, and then I had people call in as well. I used to do the same thing. I used to, as little as 3 or right before everything is awesome, just before everything is awesome, I used to have 5 computers going to run.
Oh my God.
Which you didn't need to do. You didn't need to do 5 years ago. That was just old school mentality because I'm an old man.
Well, so yeah. Do you have any memory of your first podcast? Listening, what made you think to do it? Because I think I was listening at that time.
I feel like there's a story.
I think the first one I ever listened to, it must have been 08, 07 or 08 was Alternative Press used to do one, and then Mark Hoppus had one called Hi, My Name is Mark, because that was really good. But that was because, podcasts is because of iPods, which don't even exist anymore because Apple just needed something to put on their iPods. And then Apple did nothing with them for years, which is why the industry, which is kind of good for people like us, because we got to really get on the ground. Well, you literally got on the ground level.
Yeah, well, so, and I misheard the question as, do I have memories of my first podcast?
Do you remember like the first ones you listened to before you're like, I should make one?
It was Kevin Smith. Yeah, it was Kevin Smith.
Which was that, Smodco?
Smodcast, yeah, that's the old school original one that's still going today. That was the first one I listened to, and honestly, I think I only listened to that one back then, except for so I'm a big Kid. Well, I used to be a Kid Chris fan. He doesn't air in Philly anymore, but Kid Chris was like the big radio guy in the afternoons around here, and he was like he was primed to take over for Stern. And back in that day, like my whole mindset was like, oh, I'm going to be I want to go into radio broadcasting. So like our podcast was formatted that way. It was formatted as a 2-hour show with segments and breaks, 5-minute breaks and stuff. So so that's, I was listening to Kid Chris and Smodcast back then.
Kevin Smith.
Brie, are you a Kevin Smith?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think we ever talked about that.
No, we have never talked about that. I mean, yes, I am.
Yeah, same. I love Fat NBA.
Here's the Kev Gallagher guarantee when I'm on a podcast. We're going to talk Kev Smith. Yeah. We're going to talk Batman at some point.
Batman.
I'm going to try to take over the show and ask you questions. It's just what happens. It's what happens when you have an interviewer as a guest.
Oh my gosh.
We'll allow it. I mean, that's what I like. I'm like, man, I can't even imagine, like, technologically speaking, I don't think I would even have the wherewithal. Like, I remember it was 2008 and I was in college and my school had a defunct radio station and I was like part of the committee to help get it together. We were going to build a radio station. And
that's cool.
It fell to infighting because we got in a huge fight. I was like, we need to make a podcast. And they're like, no, we need to do internet radio or terrestrial radio. I went to school in rural Vermont. I'm like, why would we want to make something that only 8 people could hear? And it never happened. And I remember like back then even being like, we need to do a podcast. Anyone could hear these in the world. And everyone, and like, no, podcasts are stupid. They're not going to take off. Booyah.
Like a huge industry now.
17 years later.
It's a lot of money. None of that falling on us.
I mean, I don't have any of it, but there is a lot of money in it.
A lot of voices.
Yeah. We'll take some of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it is, and like I said, we actually for my 10-year anniversary, I got together with my producer from the original podcast, and we recorded like a hour, probably like 2 hours worth of audio, and we were just going over like the history of podcasting and what we used to do and how it changed and how we do things now. If he's not doing it anymore, but I was still doing it, and it is crazy, this technology. 13, 14 years ago, I mean, back then it was literally, you were trying to figure it out. Like, Kev Smith, I think he recorded on his iMac or whatever, his MacBook, cut it in Final Cut Pro before he's passed off editing duties and stuff. I'm sure like the other big podcasters in the day used radio equipment and stuff. And
yeah, that's what Mark Maron did.
We used 17 computers, So.
Wow.
Famously, Mark Maron was fired from Air America, but they still let him into the building. So they broke in and would record his pod would become WTF with Mark Maron. And I think he actually stole it and brought it to his house at some point.
Oh my god!
Nice.
Which I think that is, I mean, just technologically speaking, the last year alone, so much has changed in podcasting to the point of 13 and a half years. I'm so fixated on that. It's so cool.
That's incredible, and you stuck with it. That's great.
Well, no, I mean, there's been gaps. There's been like when my son was born, I took a big gap, probably like a 3 or 4 year gap. And then like I just took off the last year, probably the last 2 years realistically. I didn't record much in 2019.
You put stuff out.
I posted everything. I put stuff out that was from 2018.
Yeah, it still counts, baby.
But I had like just like kind of a mental breakdown of like just doing it because of like family health things. And then when I was also doing my network at the time, which I went on my tirade on Twitter today about. And it's I applaud you guys for doing what you're doing, because it's literally the worst thing in the world. Like, I will probably never do a network again. I think it is awful to have to run one of those.
We purposely did not do that
because
like, no, I can't run one.
Yeah.
Well, it's you have to either have 17 shows yourself, which is what I did years ago when we started.
Oh my gosh.
Before podcast networks were a thing. And I was like, hey, let's have like there's like TV stations. Why not have a podcast station? And we did branch off into a few shows and whatnot. And then eventually that became a network. And then eventually that went defunct. And then like 3 years ago, I put a real try into it with like bringing on other shows. So all I had to do was edit them, which was a big mistake.
Oh, it's a lot of work.
I don't like editing. I do not like editing. As Chris, you and I have discussed on the various appearances on each other's shows, my editing is usually like hit record, go, hit stop, add some songs, we're good to go, done. I don't care, but I now am paying, getting paid back for all that, because the new show is a lot of editing, because it's supposed to be theater. It's supposed to be, it's supposed to be like a piece of entertainment that you're putting out there. So it's
like an audio drama.
painful.
That's a lot of stop and goes.
Yeah,
and
I don't know if you know this, Kev. Actually, we and Bree just figured this out today, but like, you're kind of indirectly the reason Bree and I ended up teaming up, because as you said, you had some mental breakdown and had some family issues. Relatable content here, as you remember when I tried to quit
Stark Industries.
I remember we did a really nice episode on when I was like just getting like working through my PTSD and finally being able to talk about it. You were really nice and let me come on to. We came on to Everything Is Awesome to talk about. That was the first time I ever publicly talked about it, and which was really special.
Right.
And I remember what I was like. Then I was like trying to bring it back. I was trying to figure out what to do, and I was like, I remember we were talking because I left because of my depression. I left the Core 10 Barts Network, who I shout out, love them. And then I remember at one point I was like, yeah, well, join Everything Is Awesome. And I think I don't realize how depressed I still might have been, because I think you sent me, it's like, yeah, it's super easy. You just send me an email. And I was like, oh, that's too much work. And then I think another year went by before Bree came into play. It wasn't anything to do with you. It's just, as you know, it's just like, for a while, I kept thinking I was going to bring it back, and then I wasn't, and then I was, and it was a whole big thing. But because of that was like what would led me directly to teaming up with Bree.
Yeah, he was just messaging me today, and he said he was talking about you and how he was supposed to join your network, and I was like, so you were going to leave me for him? Bless his heart.
What we called you, I said you're Revel 2. No, wait, I'm Gallagher 1.0, and you're Revel
Gallagher
2.0. Because I'm not as good as you.
Yeah.
No, listen, I am.
That was always our joke.
You're like a veteran.
I'm an awful veteran. I am not good at podcasting. Otherwise, I would have found a way to make money at it in the last 13 years.
My gosh, it's not. It's a hell of a lot of work, and it takes a lot of commitment. And God damn it!
Time of our lives.
I'm trying to find my ring light and turn it on, but I can't find the switch. I just realized I'm dark.
It's okay. It's perfect. So jumping into your show, you talked about the experience you have before, and for someone who hasn't listened to your show yet, you have one episode out recently, right? Why don't you tell us what to expect to it?
So I have, as of today, 3 bonus episodes and 1 regular episode.
Okay, I saw 1 on Spotify.
Yeah, there should be 4 up on Spotify now. We're finally on Apple Podcasts. That was a train.
Don't even get me started about that right now.
Oh. Well, I think it was and I love Anchor. I love them a lot, but I think it was Anchor's fault. It's also the first time I've ever let things do the automation for me and the distribution. Normally I'm like
Apple.
Control freak.
You're not the only one. They now I think they it's like a 2-week period before anyone can get on. It's
it used to be 3 days. I used to be able to post
Wow.
it 3 days later. I was an Apple.
yeah. They got really stingy with the
but
RSS
yeah,
feeds.
But solo role playing games is something that obviously through quarantine this last year has really blown up. I think it's been a thing since before then because I've been talking about it for probably 2 years now at this point. And I would say about 2 years ago, I was chatting with James D'Amato from the One Shot Podcast Network. He was a guest on my podcast probably for the second time, and he put out this book called The Ultimate RPG Player's Guide, Character Backstory, something another. Google James D'Amato, you'll find the books on your
name sounds familiar.
places.
Yeah, it does.
He is a one of my favorite podcasters in general, but also like one of my favorite actual play podcasters. And that book that he wrote, and he's written a few more since then, but it's really gives you a chance that if you play the popular tabletop role-playing game that I'm not going to name because they're bad people, but if you have characters in that game, you can use these exercises, and you can use it for any game, for any character, really. There's a bunch of exercises that you can really do on your own, and it kind of allows you to play the game when you're not with the group, to a certain degree. So that really triggered the idea of what single player was going to be, which was like, oh, maybe I'll do something where like I just feature all these tools, and that evolved over the last 2 years to what it is today. Which is, you guys aren't going to talk at all. Like your audience that's watching right now, if they don't know me, which they probably don't, because again, garbage. But like I talk way more than Kevin Smith, even I think.
So you're a rebel.
I like listening, so it sometimes.
Sometimes. So
There you go.
what single player turned into in 2021 and in 2020, as I kind of went into pre-production with it, is a combination of some of my favorite actual play podcasts, which are like Party of One, is hosted by my friend Jeff Stormer, and he does duet play, which is, it's 2 players. They're playing games made for 2 players. Sometimes they hack games for 2 players, but it takes that concept of weird. It's not normal to play a role-playing game with 2 people. It's usually with a whole group.
Right.
So I took that concept. One Shot, similar concept from James D'Amato, where you're just playing a new game every episode. And then Jeff actually has another show called All My Fantasy Children that he hosts with his best friend Aaron Catano Sayas, and that's a world building. It's less actual play, more world building, where they create, based off prompts, like new characters and scenarios in a shared universe called fantasy. So single player kind of takes all the best parts of that and does it like 10 times worse, where we play single player games, and it's a new game every week. It's weird because it's just one person doing it, and I'm creating a whole universe out of these games.
Wow.
So can I ask you something?
Yes.
You hate free time, because I was listening to your episode today. Besides the fact it sounds beautiful, and like I don't know a ton about role player game, but you did 3 different voices. How long did one episode take you to make?
So I did 3 different voices. Which episode is
Which
this?
one that showed up? It's like goes bonus. No, it says episode 0. No. Oh my god. Only something about wearing a mask, like from Spider-Verse. Like only.
Yeah. Okay. So if anyone wears a
That's
mask.
right.
I don't. It's funny because I don't really remember doing many voice. Like So spoilers for episode 2. The show is supposed to be released every other week. But because of Apple being Apple, I released episode 1 late. So I was going to release episode 2 today. However, after re-listening to it during the editing process, I realized that I slipped into we're not good. And not good like because they sucked, because I don't mind putting a crappy voice up, but not good in like the PC way. Like they just it's just, I'm a white dude, and somehow it slipped into a problematic voice. And I was like, okay, I need to. Right, and that's so. And I haven't tweeted it out yet. That's one of my one of my things like going forward with this game, because the role playing community, the TTRPG community, tabletop role playing game community, they're a great community, but they're also a community that gets beat down, especially by some of the bigger people, the bigger publishers and stuff. They don't really respect like a diverse set of creators as much as we would want them to. And I say wait, I'm part of that community of fan first and foremost, because I know diddly and squat really about all the details and the nitty gritty of that community. I rarely see the discourse that happens on Twitter with it, but I do know that, it's a community of weirdos, and because of that, and I mean that with like affection, like we're a bunch of weirdos that sit around and pretend we're hitting things with fake swords or
LARPing.
Through, it's not. Listen, there's nothing wrong with LARPing. I've never done it, but that's not LARPing. That is a difference.
Okay, I mean, WoW's different too. It's an RPG. It's kind of like a solo RPG where you have a universe that you are in.
Well, I mean, WoW is born from these tabletop games, right? So, but it's the community. I mean, you do.
I love WoW.
No, I haven't.
We're supposed to play together.
Yeah, I don't have time for that game. But you're part of that community of weirdos, and it is, and the reason it's important to know that that's a term of endearment, is that because we're a community of weirdos, it's also a community that, like, outside of role-playing games, other quote-unquote weirdos came together in. So like this space is, now I say this as a cisgender white dude, but the space is filled with the queer community, the
LGBTQIA, baby.
all those letters. Yes, thank you. But and I don't use that term lightly. As a almost 37-year-old, I grew up thinking that word was like, you don't say that Q word.
Yeah, no, same.
Like,
Yeah.
They reclaim it. It's so, like, I apologize if that's like not what we say here, but it was reclaimed.
Terminology.
Yeah.
That's my cat.
It's kitty cat. Anyway, so but the queer community has like a huge representation in this role-playing game community, but only on the indie level, unfortunately. And same thing with like people of color. They make up this community, and because like all those other communities get beat up in the real world, and with shit that actually matters, when I recognize something that goes wrong in this show in particular, in single player in particular, my mission is to make sure that I correct it. Luckily with this, I called it right away. But there's definitely going to be times where things fall through the cracks, because again, cisgender white dude, I don't know shit from anything. Like, I'm going to screw up. I think we're all around the same age. In the 90s, it was cool to make gay jokes. That was a thing you could do back then. Doesn't mean it's okay. Racist jokes were okay back then. It doesn't mean it's okay.
Sure.
But as long as we can recognize that, like, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, Christ, that was 30 years ago. That in the 90s, yes, this is what happened. I own up to it. I did it. I did podcasts in the early 2000s, and my inspiration partly was Howard Stern and Kid Chris. So, like, I can't sit here and say that I wasn't doing shock jockey things, because I was, and it was awful. That's a 10 years ago, 13 years ago. That version of Kevin doesn't exist anymore. But you own up to it, because that's how you. Yeah, exactly.
I respect that you kind of caught it before it happened. Like, let's not do that.
Right, right. And I owe a lot I'm going to keep referring to other podcasts because I'm in my infancy in this actual play endeavor. But James D'Amato with the One Shot Network, they're a shining example, I think, of what you do when something comes to light that either someone on your network may or may not have done, or something that happened on one of your shows, and addressing it publicly, addressing it updates on a somewhat frequent basis, if you can, and showing that you're willing to make the corrections to make better on it.
It's big.
We've had.
See, I
want to say
disagree with you there. I think you got to go Louis C.K., be a real dick, be a jerk about it, and somehow bring your penis into it as much as possible. I'm just teasing.
Can I mute him? Is that possible?
I feel like the rest of this top power just has to be used to make her uncomfortable, right?
No,
that's what the rest of the
but I agree with what you're saying, because I think honestly what everyone wants is just like a sincere "I'm sorry and I can do better." And what I don't like is when people get called out or whatever you want to call it, and then they do that like remember that guy who got fired before he got on SNL? Was it Shane Gillis? I think his name was.
Yes.
And then it's just like this. Yeah. This like apathetic, like, oh my god, I'm sorry you're offended. I'm like, oh, F that, man. Like I want genuine, like, dude, you mess up, like we all do.
Yeah, learn from it.
So we tell our kids.
Another shining. What's that?
That's what we all tell our kids, you know? It's like,
right,
and that's what everyone wants.
Well, and I think another shining example of something like that is James Gunn. Like,
designers.
You know, when he got fired by Disney.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought for some reason I thought Tim Gunn for a second.
No. James Gunn,
yes.
Director of Guardians of the Galaxy and now Suicide Squad. You know, I think he's a pretty good example of you know, owning up to that stuff. Like he's the guy who did kind of shock jockey jokes at this point 15 years ago. And someone found him. Were they cool? No, they were. It was absolutely awful jokes.
He was that was a reaction from the extreme right because they were pissed that Roseanne got fired. So people like the very mob that they claimed that people do went out and like, let's find someone and that. But yeah, you're exactly right, and he owned up to it, and then he worked with Disney, and he came back and also gave us some great movies. So thank you.
Right. Well, and also like. It's also if you do the research and you look at the James Gunn of that time and the James Gunn of 5 years later, the James Gunn of 5 years later to present day, like you see that he's changed several times. His humor has changed several times. You know, every actor that's worked with him has said like, no, he's a good dude. Like he's not like that anymore. Like he's a famous person that showed, yes, I experienced growth. I was a dillweed in my 20s or however old. I think he was actually in his 30s or something. But yeah, I was a dillweed back then. And then I grew. So it's what happens.
Do you have any old episodes we can dig up to get you in trouble?
Oh my God. You're fired.
I'm sure that someone somewhere has got to have episodes of Happy Hour with Steel Tip. I don't know who, because I don't have them, that's for sure. But there's got to be someone out there that saved them in cases like, I know Kev, and if this fucker ever runs for office, I got him. I got him.
Well, so I know we'll definitely want to circle back to this podcast too, but you have such a lengthy 13.5-year experience. When we met, you're doing Everything Is Awesome. And I know you've done a bunch of other stuff, plus you write and all this great stuff. But the thing I remember when we first met, I was in so much awe of you and like really looked up to everything you're doing because you had this amazing podcast scene, like the way I had like the punk rock scene in Connecticut growing up in Philly, and you were doing like live shows at Tattoo Mom. Yeah. What was it called? Right?
Yep. Tattooed Mom.
And, like, man, that's Rebel's dream. He keeps talking about it.
Yeah, well, especially at that time in Rhode Island, like literally, there were other people doing podcasts, but we didn't know each other like until maybe within the last few years. Like we have a scene here, and actually I'm doing a live one in April, hopefully. But anyway, so like that's really always something I've always really like admired about what you've done with podcasts is like bringing in that community and the live shows. Like, so tell us, like, man, what even gave you the idea to be like, not only should I I thought someone said Bree is so pretty upset. I was like, well, what did I do?
That's Vanessa.
Oh, what's up, Vanessa? But like, what made you even think to be like, all right, let's do a live show? And like, there's a Philly scene.
Yeah, there is, and I can't take credit for that Philly scene. I've been here for I mean, obviously since before the Philly scene was born. As a suburb kid, I'm not actually from Philly, but I bleed green like the best of them. But I've been so officially, like, with Everything Is Awesome, I kind of like, that's like the 0 point for me entering the Philly scene officially. So I mean, I've been around for, I think, longer than half the time the Philly scene's been around. But prior to that, back when I did like the second version of Happy Hour, when it was just called Happy Hour and it was just me and one other person hosting it, I VidCon was in year one. And this is probably going back to 2010-ish, 2011. I was riding high on podcasting.
Thanks, Steven.
I had a studio in like where I paid rent.
Oh, wow.
I had I had an office there. It was like, why that happened, I have no idea. Because again, $0. I know, you know what? That's not fair. That's not fair. I made $0 off my podcast, but I was contracted with another podcast that I was a part of that I did make money off of. Not a lot. Certainly not a lot. That up until, I think, like 2 years ago, I got a royalty check for a penny. Which
Yes.
was
Did you frame it?
I want a royalty check.
I should have. I threw it away, but I was like, oh my God. Like, in hindsight, I'm a rock star. Like, I'm a rock star podcasting. I'm getting royalties.
Oh my God, right? It costs more to print that check.
Right. So, but anyway, VidCon was in their like first year of doing stuff. So like all your YouTubers at the time, like, well, I don't know any of the YouTubers. Who, especially 5 years ago or however long it was.
Hang out with Logan Paul.
No, fuck that guy.
Actually, YouTube bad person. Like, there's plenty I love. That's like the one that we all don't like.
But so VidCon was a thing, and I was talking to my old original producer became like kind of not necessarily a business partner, but he was the guy that contracted me out. We shared the studio space, we shared the office space, and I was like, and we so in what's it? Is it considered Warminster? I believe it's considered Warminster, PA. There is the centrifuge. NASA used to have a place out there, and they did like, oh, this is where you train to become an astronaut. Yo,
you're so funny. NASA, that's not real.
So Neil Armstrong actually like trains in the building that I hosted podcast.
Oh my gosh.
First Man on the Moon, first podcast. Pretty cool.
If this, coincidence? I think not.
You guys in the same room. Just saying.
If this was the view of that studio, right about here was the Neil Armstrong bathroom in our studio.
Oh my god.
Because we assume he took a piss there.
Yeah.
Had to.
I put plaque there.
So it was in that space that I talked to my former producer and then business partner of saying like, hey, like, what about PodCon? Like, that's a cool thing. Like, if they have VidCon, why not PodCon?
Yeah.
Like, podcast is better. And like several years later, someone actually made a PodCon. But before that, Philadelphia, like I would say 2 years after I suggested that, the Philadelphia Podcast Festival became a thing. And I think they would even admit that first year was a train wreck.
Mm-hmm.
They ran it differently than they do now. Well, not that they run it now, but like since I guess 2019 was the last one. It's run much differently now than it was then. But that scene was established by them, by the people that run that organization. They established the Philadelphia podcast scene. But my love of live shows was born from Kevin Smith doing live podcasts, and you know, my origin point with anything in podcasting almost always goes to Kev Smith, except for the new show, really. So yeah, that's why I started doing live shows, and I remember applying to in the first year that I did Philly Podcast Festival. I also applied to the Pittsburgh Podcast Festival. That never happened. They just ceased to exist. And then the DC Podcast Festival, which has turned into like this huge thing that's like on the level of whatever the big PodCon is. I don't know what it's called.
New York has one. I know.
No, yeah, not no. There's like a pod
Thanks.
something.
Oh,
like they were in
podcast, the
Philly,
Global Summit one.
something like that. Yeah, like
It's
they
coming
go
up
to.
in
They were in
March.
Orlando. Yeah,
One
they
of
were in
our,
Orlando. They were in
yeah.
Philly. They do the podcast award Academy Award show. I believe is done there every year as well.
Ooh, that's fun.
Can we have one?
But yeah, so Philly Festival really got me jump started into the live shows, and then I ran with it. I started my own festival that I didn't do last
Oh my
year for
gosh,
obvious
man!
Did
You're
something
gonna give
happen
Rebel
last year
all
that
these
stopped you from doing
ideas.
it?
You're not allowed to do
There's
one,
so
Rebel.
many people-
You're working me to the bone here.
No. No, I was like, did something happen last year that stopped you from doing a podcast festival?
Well, so
Pandemic or-
my festival is normally in January, and so what stopped me from doing it last year was my mental capacity to handle
Your trip to Wuhan?
anything. Right. Yeah, that's
I was in Wuhan, I had
I
some
did
bats, I
that.
flew home, and then everything changed.
Who would have known?
God.
Gallagher!
It was me.
I knew it.
I'm patient zero, guys.
We're gonna get so many emails.
I would love that.
Emails are good. See, listen, it's when you stop getting emails that it's bad.
Or would you check a member like me? Sorry to everyone I haven't responded to still.
No, I don't ever like people. So on the new Twitter for the new show, like people are like leaving comments left and right, and like I'm so bad at social media, I can't handle more than one. I'm trying to like leave all my role playing stuff to solo, to single player RPG, and then all my other bullshit on at that nerdy Kev. Every time I curse, I just look up. And I'm like, what is she gonna do?
Been there.
Where's the 7-second
I'm gonna
delay?
yell at you when it stops.
So I love that. I like that story that you kind of copying Kevin Smith, because of course he like kind of transformed the podcast from after he would do those evening with Kevin Smiths, which actually like I like his movies, but that's how I found him in college. Like someone in college showed me one of those, and I was like, ooh, I like these. And then I found his movies afterwards. Yeah. It's so cool.
Yeah,
I remember I really wanted to do one. Like I had like a dream that I was going to come down to Philly and do my first live podcast. And then like, my daughter was born, and then I think I tried to quit, and then everything fell apart. Life fell apart for a while. And then there's a pandemic.
Is that it?
Yeah. I still think, and I can't speak for Rhode Island, obviously, but I still think that Philadelphia, and there will be people that argue with me, but I think Philadelphia, as far as the independent podcasting scene, is one of the biggest, if not the
100%.
biggest. I think James D'Amato will argue that Chicago is, and he has a right to argue that because there are a lot of comedians out there that will.
I think Los Angeles would probably be the winner, right?
For in general, yes, they have the star power, but I don't think Indy. I don't think they're the biggest Indie scene.
No,
there is a difference there.
Yeah.
New York and LA, it is way unfair that they exist, and it's unfair that they get the credit for podcasting because they have a very big advantage that I don't think a single person in Philadelphia has, that a single person in Rhode Island has, that a single person in maybe one person in Chicago, but they have star power, and Philly doesn't. I mean, yes, I think that there are some like sports guys that are starting podcasts who still live in this area, so their names are big. They're big in the Philly area at the very least. Like one of the. Mitch Williams, I believe, has a podcast in Philadelphia here. 93 Phillies pitcher. So I think I could be making that up as well. No clue.
That's smart. I believe it.
But I think so. Like I think he has one through one of the podcasting like studios that are out here. But that was another thing. Like there's a handful of podcasting studios out here, which I think is not, like I can't think of another single city except for New York and LA that's going to have like multiple.
That's Stephen Clark.
Shout out Steven.
Hey Stephen.
We love Steven.
Listen, Chicago's great and all. It's just
Ooh, whoa.
Far,
I've been in Philly once
I'm
before,
concerned.
the Philadelphia Zoo.
Great cheesesteaks. Well, he's in Virginia. You're in Virginia, so it's not like it's close.
Yeah.
Virginia's close. I have a friend that lives, we don't really talk anymore, but I have a friend that lives just outside of DC, and I've gotten there in 2 hours. Now, it's breaking a lot of laws,
yeah, okay, there you go.
but I've gotten there in 2 hours to DC from Philly. So I've done it. It's just not
legal.
You're going to get a ticket.
So, what made you get from interview style, everything is awesome, to doing the single player RPG game? I'm sorry, podcast.
So everything is awesome. I mean, honestly, I just have a pile of episodes that I need to edit, and I was just like, wow, this is really heartbreaking, and I don't want to look at these, and I don't want to listen to them because they remind me of when I had my mental breakdown and I just stopped doing podcasting, which sucks. I apologize to all those guests that I haven't posted yet. You're going to go up at some point because the goal is still to get everything awesome to episode 200 before I officially retire it. I am on an official hiatus of that show. But that was part of it. So as we discussed on either your show, my show, I don't know.
We did a bunch of podcross, which was always super fun.
Good.
And then our lives fell apart separately.
Right, like my uncle was diagnosed with cancer, and that's the same year that I started the show. Everything is awesome, that is. And then the day before I was supposed to do my first ever live show, after being in remission for a month, I found out, it's back and it's not good.
Sorry.
And then a few months later, he passed.
Oh man.
And that hit me hard. But and then, God, how many? I forget the anniversary. Let me do some quick math. I think it was the 2-year anniversary of him passing. That same week, my dad was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So that was 2018. That was the start of the downfall of Everything Is Awesome, because then a few weeks later, the week of Thanksgiving, we found out it was stage 4 bone cancer.
Oh my gosh.
And great news is he's still alive, and you can't tell that he has cancer. It looks like he's. It's weird. They have magic pills now. It's crazy what 2 years will do.
Yeah.
You got some good genes in there. You come from.
Well, yeah, kind of, because the other half of the family, not so much. My uncle passed, and not 2 different cancers though. 2 different scenarios that you can't really compare 2 different cancers. This is what I've learned in the last several years of dealing with it. But that was when my dad was diagnosed, even though I never really had the breaking point that I did with my uncle, because my dad never really looked like a cancer patient.
Yeah.
And I think it's because they didn't subject him to as much chemo, because stage 4 bone cancer, all they can do. Well, it started in the prostate as well, so it's not everywhere in the bones as far as I know, but they can only do so much once it's in your bones. It's there forever. You're living with it, and that's
painful.
That's what they're doing now. Luckily, knock on wood, I don't think it's too painful. Says the healthy guy. Hold on.
Is there a cat?
Sorry, no, I don't. Listen, I'm not a cat guy. I have dogs. But I have my door all the way closed, and I thought maybe there was a child knocking lately. Anyway, so the healthy guy that's never experienced cancer firsthand says, I don't think my dad's in pain. I don't think he is. I think there's minor pain, minor discomfort, but they have it controlled really well. Anyway, that was the start of the downfall of Everything Is Awesome. So in 2019, I didn't really record anything. I did a bunch of festivals, and by festivals I mean conventions. So that I moved on from doing live shows, which are fun. I almost stopped doing them, but I moved on from them to doing roundtable discussions at Wizard World, Philadelphia Comic-Con. I don't think Keystone ever accepted me, and I don't think I submitted anything to PAX Unplugged, but I started doing these roundtable discussions in 2018, and I continued those into 2019. And then I didn't really I released some of those. I didn't release anything else really. 2020, I was like, this is the year, guys. 2020 is my year. nothing's gonna happen. Hey, for those in the RPG community, it's a double crit year. You know, this is gonna be a great year for Everything Is Awesome. What could go wrong?
Hang out in
January
person
1st
in crowded places.
Right. I was like, I'm gonna go to every bar and do coke all day long.
I'm gonna do a quick trip to Wuhan, and then we'll start our year.
yeah. Don't do drugs.
Not an endorsement.
But like that was the plan. I was like, oh, I'm gonna catch up. I'm gonna record like twice a week, and I'm gonna have a backlog. Everything Is Awesome is gonna be 2020. That's the year. And then, you know, I part of it was the pandemic. Part of it was, you know, my mental space just not being right, and that's when. At some point, during that 2018, 2019 timeframe, I told all the shows on the network, I was like, hey, you guys could still be on the network. I'm not editing your show unless you want to pay me $80 an hour. Like, that's going to be my fee to edit your show, which is outrageous. It's an outrageous cost. But I said, that's what I'm going to do, because every time I listen to your show, you're saying, hey, drop this song, drop this and that. You're asking me to add 20 minutes of work to my day. Like, I just want to listen and cut out hey, I didn't mean to say this. I didn't mean to say I like Nazis or whatever the thing that you said is.
I did not see that coming.
So, in your experience of podcasting, I feel so we did a poll recently about podcasting, and burnout seemed to be like one of the biggest ones. Do you think burnout and like mental health coincide, or are they just like different things that different walls people hit?
This is an awful segue from
Thank
Nazis.
That never happened.
Did not see that.
Cut that out. Okay.
Listen, I told you. I warned you.
Not enough.
No, obviously. 47 minutes in, I derailed it, guys.
I knew that.
So enjoyed our show.
I can't see the chat, so I have no idea. If I saw the chat, maybe I would know whether I should be taming it back or not. I don't know. Guys, I will never be a guest again. Like, this is.
I disagree.
This is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm seeing right now.
Oh my god! Yes,
Wait,
you know, Dantes are terrible for mental health, so we appreciate you not bringing them up.
Well, I think one thing, my background, I work in behavioral health. For those who may not know, the pandemic exacerbated a lot of underlying mental health issues people probably already had that they weren't treating. So maybe if you were already like have like some low level depression or anxiety, but enough where you didn't like maybe need to go to a hospital, or maybe you should have got help, but you still didn't because no one ever does right away, myself included. Let's just say the pandemic just really ripped off that Band-Aid and was like, I had to go back on an antidepressant this year. It just got too hard.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with serotonin.
I agree.
But
I still just, I'm that guy that like won't get help. Like, I just won't. Like, I keep it all. I keep it all in and I figure it out on the inside.
No, you don't. That's the best part. Let me guess. You have some back problems?
Yeah, I do.
Can we go through the symptoms?
Can we just diagnose you? Because if you don't take care of your emotional needs, it will manifest into physical pain.
Physical. Okay, well, this is not a therapy session. Poor Kevin.
The physical pain. The physical pain is from years of taking back bumps on the ground
and repressed
and on the ring.
And watch maybe a little cry, just get it all out there.
Oh my god!
Just feel something.
You know, that is what Chasing Amy is. That's like my I want to cry. Let me watch Chasing Amy.
Sure.
That's my go-to. No, you know, Endgame is probably a really good option as well because I teared up during that. Obviously,
right when Captain America just sits on the bench at the end, that just got me.
Yep, that's the scene.
Or the cheeseburger.
That's a small scene.
I also WandaVision is like, man, I've never felt more connected to an MCU character.
What is love but pain persevering or something.
Oh my
Like,
god.
What is love but grief?
That broke
No,
me.
he's like, it all can't be sorrow, but what is love but grief persevering? I
Yeah.
quoted that
Other way
every
around. What
single day at work.
Oh yeah. It is that line. I heard that line. It sat with me for so long. And like, it's such a shame that this show, I mean, this show is really just Wanda. It's very little Vision.
Right.
And that's a shame because Paul Bettany is as good as little Mary Kate and Ashley is, as I will call her from now on, because she will forever live in their shadow.
No, you're so wrong, because half the people like 10 years under us have no idea who they are. Like, literally.
I know.
Oh wait, the girls that killed Heath Ledger? Like, that's it.
Yeah, I saw that discourse on Twitter.
Like,
the other
nobody
day.
knows.
I was like, wait, people don't know that they're related?
Yeah, I mean, there's just such a gap of, like, especially because they're not even in Fuller House. So, like, yeah, which I don't care about, but
they were going to ask Lizzie to do it, and I think she was the Scarlet Witch, so she said no.
She chose right.
Yeah, she said, I'm too busy being a Marvel superhero. Netflix Fuller House, no thank you. I'll take my ball into Disney Plus.
Yeah.
But back to like Bree's question, that I mean I could say I definitely was my having just burnout. I mean, I had burnout in December. Like, I had to take a few weeks off from what we were doing, and actually, my doctor had to pull me out of work, and I was like, "Bree, can you take over? I need to lie in a bed for a long time."
Yeah, no, I definitely think they.
Okay, it's you guys that are in trouble.
Who's Michelle?
No.
Yeah.
Come on, you got Full House.
Oh,
my kids aren't a big Full House kick. They binged Fuller House hardcore and loved it, and then
oh my gosh, no!
They discovered that Full House was on Hulu, and they're like, and so they're like in the middle of a Full House binge, which is great for me because like it really kind of like reminds me of how
bad it was.
Old and shitty I am, because like in season 1, Danny Tanner turns, I think, 30 years old in season 1 of Full House. I was like, what? Like, I think in season 6, which the kids are on now, me and Danny Tanner are finally the same age. Oh. It took 6 years for us to be the same age in 2021.
Wow.
It is depressing.
Thank you, Chad.
If you don't want to.
I had forgot
to realize how old you are. If you go back and watch Fuller House, and you'll be like, oh, I'm old. Like, I'm pretty sure the only one older on that show than me is DJ Tanner. Besides the adults, obviously. But like, I'm older than the twins, the Michelle Tanner, and Stephanie Tanner and I might be the same age. But like, it's so depressing as like a person who's
watching it.
Someone who's rewatching it and doesn't want to die, doesn't want to admit that he's old. Someone that wants to be young forever, and like,
Comet's dead.
It's what's that?
Comet is dead.
No, Comet 1 is dead.
Comet 1 is like Comet's dead. Like for a long
Comet
time.
75. Yeah, but Comet 75 is alive and kicking on Fuller House.
Everything that you love and everyone you know will die one day.
Oh my Lord, we're all gonna need therapy after this episode.
I go on Tuesday.
I can swing it back to some lighthearted fun.
I still think you haven't answered question 1.
Rotzi.
He makes his own questions and answers them. This is where we are. It's okay.
Are we in Gallagher vision right now? Like, we're just like in our beds being mind controlled? Oh, that'd be cool.
Oh man, does that mean I get to sleep? Oh wow, that's a compliment from Steven there.
I feel the same way.
Third-rate Kevin Smith. I'm wearing the blazer with the pins. I got the backwards hat on.
Oh my god, Chad, yes.
Oh my gosh, it says yes.
I need to get back on my Simpsons watch. Like I haven't watched Simpsons in years.
Yeah,
get back on it through
it's been a while. You like go in and out of it.
It's because it's older than me. I guess it's not older than me, but because it's so old, it's just like a show that like, I'm into it now. I'm not into it now. My son at 9 is probably just getting to that age where it's like perfect for him to watch. So we need to start watching it on D+.
D+.
But To answer your question, yes, I think burnout and depression are linked.
Sure.
Oh my God.
That's all. I mean, they're linked.
What's your answer? Yes.
I don't. Yes, they're linked. I don't necessarily think, because I live, with people. Like, I know people that are actually living with depression, and
I'm talking to one.
Never ever that.
Two.
I never. I've seen firsthand what, like, someone that has it, that goes off their medication, like how their life changes.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I'm not that level of depressed ever, because, like, I live a pretty carefree world. Like, I'm pretty lucky, yes, it sucks when anyone's family member dies, and I'm sure that that contributed to some form of depression for me, but never enough where I think I actually need to sit down and talk to anyone, because I still have that invincible complex about myself, and I definitely don't need medication. Like, I just seeing someone who needs it.
I'm sorry, we just can't stop laughing at you.
It's just,
this is
I feel like
textbook
everyone
what
should go.
says.
Exactly. Everyone should go see a therapist at least once in their life, whether you think
that's
you need it
usually
or
the
not.
100%. Everyone should, but me.
Yeah.
I agree. Like,
Yeah.
everyone.
And Kevin needs it the
Everyone
most.
should host the podcast.
Okay.
I work at a psych hospital. I'm like, oh, I've heard this conversation before.
Right.
Good for you. I mean,
And other people have it worse, and you don't have to do it. But it's you matter, and your mental health is important, and it's going to show through, like, your shows, as you said, when you took a year off, and you got to take care of number one.
As long as Marvel keeps on putting out
that's
MCU
fair.
content,
He's got coping skills.
I'll be good.
He's got some coping skills.
I'll be good to go. As long as there's a new Star Wars movie every 2 or 3 years, or show, whatever, I'm good.
Got something to look forward to.
When they decide to reboot MCU, that's when you can kill them. When you want to get a new Tony Stark, when you want to reboot that MCU, when you want to reboot Star Wars, that's when you can kill them. That's when
breaking news: Marvel's announced they're rebooting Tony Stark.
But so I know we're, like, almost out of time here.
Oh, you have for some reason it's not showing up. It's Stephen Clark.
It's Stephen Clark.
Kevin, I'm sure you should do it.
Sure. Sure. I don't. As long as you don't talk about those Rotsies, we're good.
And think Stephen will know what to expect, so he can be like, "Hi, Kevin, how are you?" And then just sit back
and just take over, guys. It's perfect.
Again,
you can do it. I'll show right around it.
Nice.
What this reminds me of is when Kev Smith is on Colbert show, and Colbert doesn't get to talk at all. Like, that's what this reminded me of. I let you guys talk a little bit.
If you do it right, you're the guest. I hope that you do talk, so I don't have to.
That was always the struggle as a host. Was like, oh, how do I let this guest talk more than me, because it's not.
I can't relate
at all.
You're just like a rebel.
But that's what, like, so when I started pre-production of single player RPG, the whole reason I'm here today.
Can we all just pause and bring that segue back? Wow. 57
Full circle.
He answered question. I'm actually.
Here we go.
Dude, you really are Kevin.
And he did it himself. This is brownie pointer.
This is why we love Kevin Gallagher.
Professional. So that show, like, really was, like, a way for me to find my love of podcasting.
Aww,
I love that.
That's awesome.
Like, and it all, like, it is, like, I wouldn't have done it. Like, I credit a lot of people, but I think the person that I credit the most is Jeff Stormer from Party One. He's just, like, has such a great view on podcasting in general, but also, like, on tabletop role playing games and the actual play scene, and like he helped me, like, he reignited my love of that game, popular fantasy tabletop role playing game, and then expanded my sight past that game to where, like, oh, there's Dungeon World there, which has a problematic creator right now, but there's a game called there's Dungeon World, there's Star Wars role playing games, there's games There's an Olive Garden LARP. There's a game where you use a Jenga tower. Chris Bissett designed this game called Wretched Alone, and it's a solo play game where you answer prompts. You have a Jenga tower. You pull it, and the Jenga tower represents the tension of this horror scene.
Oh my god, that sounds so good!
It is, and there's 2-player versions of that game called Star-Crossed, where you play your second person plays star-crossed lovers. You really, really want to, but you can't, and you build the tension between each person by pulling bricks from a Jenga tower. I think the Jenga tower might be one of the coolest mechanics. It's stressful, but it is the coolest mechanic for a game, and it all was birthed. Star-Crossed, by the way, was designed by Alex Roberts. I want to say that. But it was all birthed from Dread, which I don't know who designed that, but Dread is the group horror game where you use that Jenga tower, and that kind of birthed the Jenga tower movement in role-playing games. But it's really cool what role-playing games have become from the days of, there's that one everyone plays.
We don't talk about.
But I'll be honest, I have no idea what you two were talking about. So can you private message me? Because I was trying to fit in, but I really don't know what you were referring to.
You're so pretty.
Listen, everyone likes to explore dungeons. No one likes dragons.
Okay, I've never played
dragons.
So, but everyone that's in that community, has their feelings towards that game. I still play it, if I'm being honest. I have a group that still plays it. I'm trying to convince them to hey, let's also play other games so that it's not just.
Did you ever watch Will Wheaton's tabletop?
Yeah. Not religiously, but I did watch it.
Will Wheaton.
It's good. Wheaton. Will Wheaton. Bless you.
I apologize. I have to remind someone of something right now at 9:35. I just put this podcast.
This is unreal.
Yes, I just put this podcast in a moment of time on March 4th, 2021. You can never take that back now.
It's true.
People know.
Kevin's doing the text. It kind of sounds as if podcasting, you lost your what is it? You had to fill your glass of water, to quote Dogma.
Sorry, Alexa just yelled really, really loud.
Yeah, she did. I feel sorry for you.
I should have muted myself.
She used angry voice.
I totally relate with that kind of losing your love and passion for the thing that you've done and finding a way to rekindle it. And I that's something new. Had that experience, and I think that's what eventually led to realizing I can't do it alone anymore. I want to do something else, and when I was I got to bring in a person in, and that person was Brie. Was my first call, but so I know because I love doing it, but it had to.
I applaud what you guys are doing here because it is literally the vision I had 13 and a half years ago. There you go.
It is me. He didn't agree with me at first.
That's not true.
I can't stand when cameras are mirrored.
I know.
Because I don't know which way to point. But I really admire what you guys are doing here because it's literally the vision I had 13 years ago, which was I want to have a community of I want to have a business, a podcast. And for me, when I think that way, it becomes a job and then I hate it. And everything is awesome was my initial solution to that was I'll just have fun talking to people, new people and whatnot. And then when that became, and I don't think that became a burnout. I want to say this to on an interview show with
live
a host of an interview podcast. Live doesn't matter at all. Clearly, have you been watching the last hour and a half or hour and 3 minutes?
I tried to wind it out.
But I have nothing to offer to the interview scene. I interviewed a bunch of people.
You're a great guest.
Then it became repetitive. I did. I had a lot from doing it.
It's a great show. I absolutely
love it. It became
repetitive.
As do I. And I stopped editing Aaron Katana Sayas from All My Fantasy Children. I was halfway through editing that episode. And not that we honestly, that was probably the most unique episode in a long while that I was editing. But there was a structure to my show that I began to realize. I made this joke an hour ago, we're going to talk about Kevin Smith and Batman today. that was a thing that became it was just part of my show, and that's not a bad thing.
Mhm.
It just became less creatively fulfilling for me.
Sure.
Man.
And that had a lot to do with it as well. Ending everything is awesome and moving forward to single player. Single player is going to be a creative thing. There's no shortage of solo player games. There's no shortage of tools that I can use to build out other characters. And it's all part of this shared universe that I also am writing a novel for. So it's like a lot of like story building and world building and stuff.
Yes.
So it's like, just in my mind, I'll probably get this show to episode 200 before everything is awesome. On a bi-weekly
Do
schedule.
what you have to.
And I also told myself, like, okay, if I'm going to stop everything is awesome and move into something else, it's got to be projects that have like, oh, there's a timeline, like there's a start and there's a finish.
What's that
That's
like?
the only way I'm going to be able to do this. And now, mind you, I say that like, oh yeah, season 1 starts here. Season 1 will probably end around here. Well, I already know what season 2 is, and it's going to start like a week or two later. And then I already kind of know what season 3 is, and that's going to start a week or two after season 2. So like, me breaking it up to seasons, even though there's never going to be a break in between seasons, really, is more so just tricking my mind into that start finish kind of mentality.
I understand that. What are we at?
And as long as I can like not get lazy, I'll stick with it.
I think the Let's Chat with Chris Revel, we just posted 219 or something like that. Like, no, but like, I'm with you. Like, man, why didn't I start something? It was like, hey, I'll do a podcast, and it ends at episode 100. I can't stop. I can't get off the train, man. Help me.
No, and I think so. You obviously, I think you're a better interviewer. I was never a great interviewer. Going back to episode 1 of Happy Hour with Steel Tip, where I interviewed Fat Baby Leg, and I asked him questions. This is all real, people. This is all real. I asked him a question, he would answer, and I completely ignored it, and I just asked the next question. I laughed when you sent me an outline today, because I was like, this is a joke. Like,
my God.
Hey, it works.
I just wanted you to know what to expect.
It works for you guys. It's great.
That's the one.
It works for you guys. It's great. I love the idea of an outline. I got outlines for every episode of Single Player that I instantly have to chuck, because then I'm reading a paper versus being myself.
Yeah.
But
this is what I wrote down for you.
When I have
that's my version of the outline.
10 years. I miss you. 10 years and love songs. What is it?
No.
Love songs.
Live shows.
What's going on?
I had to say I love you for some reason. So
and see, that's the kind of stuff I did for like what I considered high profile guests, like Aaron McGaffey.
You're pretty high profile. You're pretty profile.
Dude, I have.
I am.
I did an episode which was a really big one for me yesterday with Chris Gethard, and I have 4 pages of notes that I brought down to 1 page. Like, but what you were saying, like having that creative fulfillment, and what I found is, I don't know why I like to have I don't really have a good answer of like who's a good guest, or what. We don't go by like what fits. It's like this weird like emotional thing. Like, I have to find someone that I really want to talk to for me to actually be a good interviewer. I don't. I think I've been trying, and I think I'm getting better. But like, when I don't phone it in, is for the Chris Gethard episodes and stuff. And I'm sure I'm sure Kevin, there's the ones you're like, whatever. We'll just.
I phoned in a lot of shows.
I'm guilty. Whatever. I'm not anymore.
But that's because there was a brief period of time where I went to Fiverr to be like, hey, let me make money off my show. And I would.
No, Revel. No more projects.
No, he said he made money.
But let me tell you, I had to interview 90-year-old authors who had nothing in common. I can't talk to, and again, on my bullshit, I can't talk Kevin Smith Batman with them. So like, why? It was me phoning in. I'm like, let me ask some questions. And so going back to you're a better interviewer than I, because it's true. I'm a great conversationalist. No, I mean, I think I've proven that over the last hour and 9 minutes. I can talk like The only one that talks better than me, I think, is Kev Smith. You know what I mean?
I feel like you're fangirling a little bit over Kevin Smith.
Oh yeah, we got
of course. But I'm a conversationalist. That's where I excel. I'm a storyteller. I think I can do that with single player. I am not an interviewer. I ask shitty questions, and if I have questions listed in front of me, I'm going to say, well, I was going to curse more, but I'm going to stop. I'm going to try. I haven't cursed in a long. My single player is a clean show. I can't curse on it for whatever reason. Just because it hasn't come up, I haven't had the opportunity to in single player.
And single player.
But if I have questions in front of me, I'm literally going to ask a question, and then you're going to answer, and then I'm going to move on to the next question. And we're not.
Or you don't answer, and then you move on to the next question, as you said before.
Yeah, I'm going to say it 3 times. We're not ending this show. Comedy rule 3, guys.
Got it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the outline as well, Bree, and I think I've learned that too with some guests. Like I'm with you, Kev. Like I'm much more of I can just show up and go. But I've had so many guests like just get there, like that moment of freeze of like, so what do I do? And I'm like, oh crap, I'm in charge.
It's more of guidelines that you can like fall back to if there's like
and some people need that, where I have the unbounded confidence of like a white male senator when I get on a microphone, like way too confident for no reason.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
I have nothing. I was just going to keep. I was going to drag this show on longer. Oh no, you didn't win. I just heard. I heard someone trying to end the show, and I'm trying to be respectful. But listen. You don't look third-rate Kev Smith if you don't want to go more than an hour. I saw that. I saw that on your outline.
You saw the outline was a language.
I saw. I know. I read it. And I laughed because I was like, "This is cute. This is a cute thing you think I want to follow."
Oh my god! I should have known who I was dealing with.
I cursed. I want more than an hour. It's gonna this is what happens here.
Will you come back?
I saw. You're gonna try to hold me to. You're not gonna want me back because I'm gonna take this 1 hour and a half. I said I was like an hour really. This is not gonna happen.
If you need to go, I can do another 15.
No, we can wrap, you guys. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guy that we're gonna end the show.
You are that guy. You named yourself that guy from the beginning.
This third-rate Kev Smith. Fuck him. He's a fifth-rate Kev Smith. Fifth-rate Kev Smith.
He even had his mama name him Kevin just to be like Kevin Smith.
I'm gonna go second-rate Kevin Smith. It can go third. It goes Kevin Smith, That Man Beyond, and then you.
Oh, what about you? Heard about That Man Beyond, right?
Not at all. Oops, did I step into something?
Wait.
Ooh.
No.
Okay.
Do you know who he is? Like Scott Holden?
I've listened to a show. Yeah, it's good.
You know what happened? You know he passed, right?
No, I really had no idea.
Yeah, I don't know the guy. We talked a handful of times. We were supposed to guest on each other's show.
He was super nice. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And we were supposed to guest on each other's show, but I don't know the guy. Now we have to go 15 minutes to bring the funny back. No, but that man on Fat Man, That Man Beyond, whatever he was calling himself.
I just thought I lost track of a lot of people. Like I had a lot of internet friends, and then I disappeared for a few years. So it was just one of those people. I just I didn't know them.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Anyone who knew him.
I don't know what exactly happened. I know that he went through a rough patch, his wife divorced or whatever, and then it just. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know. I don't even want to guess because that's disrespectful.
For anyone out there, there was Fat Man Beyond is a podcast with Kevin Smith and Mark Menardin that I love, and someone made a fan podcast called That Man Beyond. Like Fat Man. It was a podcast about the podcast, but Kevin Smith did it, and that's how I found it. I listened to Kevin Smith do the with the at the Secret Stash interview, and I was like, oh my god, and it was really good.
Fun fact: 8 years ago, I hosted a show called Smonday Pod. It was a Kevin Smith fan show with me and a friend. So I had when I discovered at the time it was called That Man on Fat Man. When I discovered that show, it said like,
you're right. I'm sorry. Yes, you're right.
The first ever Kevin Smith fan podcast show. And I was like, I commented on it. I was like, hey, and I tagged my buddy who co-hosted it with me. I was like, I thought we were the first Kevin Smith fan.
That's how I found it through you. Like this. Yeah.
Yes.
I am the connector of worlds.
And like a little Potter and Family crew world.
The Potter family world, man.
Listen, I'm going to take it to another Kev right now. I'm in the podcasting world. I'm Kev Bacon, 6 degrees of Kev Gallagher.
Yeah.
Connected Bree and I.
Yeah, I followed the Potter family.
So.
No, I followed the Potter family.
I mean, because I didn't join your network, I ended up finding Bree, and now because of the
right.
Oh my god. It's like that Community episode where they find out they all knew each other beforehand.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't want to say that I'm like Kev Smith and Kev Bacon's love child, but I'm probably like their love child.
The dance is outlawed in your town. No, but
on the third rate, you can play the third rate 6 degrees of that Kev Gallagher.
Can we do one? Pick someone. Let's do it. That'd be fun.
Oh wow.
God.
Let's actually have to go.
Well, I can't pick someone.
You guys are like bromance in here. Am I interrupting this?
If you pick an indie podcaster, let me see if I can connect them to me in six degrees.
Oh, you can do that to me too. We should do a whole other night of just this because I could do this all day.
Yeah, I don't trust you guys enough right now.
Barack Obama, brand new independent podcast with boss. Boom, baby.
I didn't know he started a new podcast.
I'm an indie podcaster.
I just want to throw that out there. If anyone listening is like, man, I don't have enough podcast downloads, know that Barack Obama and Bruce Springsteen have a podcast, and I still haven't listened to it. And the fact that one person uses and listens to your show should mean the world to you because there's a lot of stuff out there.
I love Springsteen.
Okay, listen, I will humbly go out on this. First of all, like you hitting.
I'm sorry.
You hitting.
Go on. No.
You hitting 219 episodes, I think, is like that's a better achievement than going 10 years. Going 10 years, going 13. It's you doing something. This is. I think I don't know why I stopped doing live podcasting. What's going on?
Dude, this has actually never happened to us ever. We've been so professional every episode.
Damn it, Kevin, you broke it.
Bree is awesome, but she, her admittedly, is not good at holding back her emotions. And so when you said like something, her eyes just popped out of her head like, it was Bree sass. This is so much fun.
I'm so sorry.
Anyway, going to. I'm almost in
there. You know how this feels.
Go on, sir.
This feels like old nerdist.
Going. I think having the episode count is more impressive than having the year count behind you. But for all those would-be podcasters out there, I think a very important thing to remember is that hit record. First and foremost, you hit record. That's the hardest thing is to hit record.
I've lost so many episodes.
Then, no, I'm not even talking about screwing up. I'm talking about
getting started is the hardest.
One.
Everyone.
Getting started is the hardest. You have to hit record. You can be a veteran podcaster like myself. I put off the reason Single Player season 1 isn't fully produced is because I put it off for 2 months. So, like, you can be podcasting for 25 years and still be a procrastinator with it. Hit record. That's the first thing. I got to follow my own advice. And then get to 10 episodes because out of all those people that hit record once, 50%, if that, get to 10. Then get to 25 because out of all those people that get to 10, maybe 50% get to 25. There's so many more podcasts that are defunct after 1 or 2 episodes than there are podcasts that go 10, 25, 50, 100. So that's, I think, the important thing to remember if you want to start a podcast is just hit those goals and hit record.
Hit record.
It's funny. We've actually had people
That was beautiful.
for this show and quit before their episode came around.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And listen, I've quit everything else in my life, so no judgment.
No, totally.
That's my wife in the other room. You broke it. Kevin Gallagher, I don't know. Are we going to be allowed on YouTube after this?
No, I honestly, we didn't get kicked off with the Rotzi comment. I don't know what's going to happen.
No, I think it's promoted. The algorithm's like, ooh, Nazis. That will people.
No. Wow. So thank you so much for the time to go on this show live.
Did you guys see Yoga Hosers with the Bratzis? This is a real thing.
So, like, if someone wants to fund your show, how do we do that?
Oh god! You know what's nice? It's not me messing it up for once.
Who is it?
I like to think of myself as the Joker of podcasts.
Yeah, no, you know what you get, and honestly, this
introduce a little bit of chaos, and you just see what
I
happens.
love it.
You know,
like when I used to first listen to Nerdist podcast, this is what it always turned into, and I love it's so fun.
I'm gonna say it.
No,
gotta say it.
I'm gonna look at you.
I'm gonna whisper it so that people don't hear it.
It's
Just
a
you guys. This is for you. I'll move the pop filter so only you guys hear it. Fuck Chris Hardwick.
I'm done.
I stopped listening before all the allegations came out because he got annoying.
Oh my god! So, like, are you on?
So Chris Hardwick, right? Let me tell you my beef with Chris Hardwick. All right,
You got 10 more minutes. This is not stopping. He's not kidding.
That's a teaser for the next time that they won't let me on the show. You can find Single Player on Twitter at Single Player RPG.
Oh my god!
That is where I mainly tweet about the show and other tabletop hot takes and stuff. I don't have a website for the show because I don't feel like paying for things anymore. So you can find it on anchor.fm/singleplayerrpg or wherever you get your podcasts, like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Playlists, Shimmy Sham. I don't know. That's probably one. I don't know. You can leave reviews on Apple and Podchaser. That's where I'll read them. You can leave them on Google. I won't read them. Sorry, guys.
They matter.
They do matter. They do. Leave them everywhere. I want you guys at every podcatcher. Find Single Player RPG, rate it 5, and say, "Hey, this dude rules" from that other show where he said Rotzi.
Oh, thank you so much. We've loved having you. I'm glad people found this funny as I did.
This is great, guys. I haven't done a guest spot in forever.
I wonder why.
I wonder why. I'm just kidding, Kevin. We love you.
I'm just kidding. People should have you.
It's okay. You're so funny. You're just hilarious. Just to say words like that.
I hope that, like, Rotzi? What's a Rotzi? Rotzi's not a thing.
You're just learning a thing.
Listen, you two made Victoria laugh from a different room who's not watching the show.
You're the one that made her laugh because you said so.
She's doing something completely different, probably watching Star Wars Rebels.
I love her.
I'm catching up with Clone Wars.
Oh god, look what we did.
Yes.
Where can people find you online?
Can't. Let's chat live.
I also like to plug. I want to plug Star Wars. Oh
no, you're not allowed to.
One more thing to plug. So Jeff Stormer dared me years ago to do the Muppet Show. And so I'm waiting. Go to.
You just make that up.
No. It's a podcast I'm starting called the Muppet Show, where we recap the Muppet Show because it's on Disney Plus. We're booking season 1 right now. Go to. Probably should have this up on my phone. I don't know what the Twitter is.
I might know someone who likes the Muppets. I don't know. Maybe a fellow podcast host.
I think I need to book 4 more episodes for. You can go to I know how to work Twitter, guys. Don't worry, it's happening. At Muppet Pod. I'm 36. Of course, I don't know how to use social media. At Muppet Pod is the Muppet Show. And you can. I have 4 episodes left to book for season 1, and then we can start recording those recaps. So go.
So you're doing a Muppet Show?
And you leave that till now? You son of a...
Listen, you can hear about.
I love the Muppets.
Next time that Kev is on Let's Chat Live
About the Muppet Show.
he'll probably keep it to over an hour.
PG.
And nearby.
And I'll talk about the Chris Hardwick incident that I experienced, and the Muppet Show.
The Muppet Show.
We got 6 more minutes. We might as well just go for it.
Do we? How do you Muppet? How do you spell the Muppet? The Muppet.
It's at Muppet Pod.
Do you listen to Blank Check at all? With Griffin and David?
No, I don't listen to my podcasts. The things I listen to are all actual plays now. A few, except for Kev Smith. He's the
love
only
that man. I'm sorry. Go on. That was out loud.
He's the only popular podcaster I listen to. Everything else is like what I would consider indie in like the actual play space, because I need to get my stories.
Griff's a big Muppet guy. He's a good get.
I want the dream guest is for, and I think it's in season 2. But in season 2 or whatever season, Mark Hamill's a guest on the Muppet Show. The dream guest is to get Mark Hamill on the Muppet Show.
Do you follow there's on Twitter, there's a great, I guess it's a blog, like a Twitter called Muppet History. This guy runs, and then there's also Tough Pigs, which is like the premier Muppets blog. I've interviewed a couple puppeteers, no big deal.
Yo, tell them about this ridiculous show called the Muppet Show.
I'm following you on Twitter now.
You would love John Bristol. He runs Elmwood Studios, and he made the first puppet horror movie. It's called Head. Awesome. He's a past guest, friend. It's awesome.
Oh my god.
But yeah, that's a project that I'm working on.
What else you got?
That's just like for fun. Like,
no,
nothing. That's all I'm doing.
So great.
I will sit here in silence.
Listen, first and foremost, listen to Single Player. That's like the show I'm going to be putting my time into. Awesome. I'm re-recording episode 2 tonight, I think.
It's like 10 o'clock.
Yeah, I don't sleep.
Who does?
Do you now? Is everything?
Fun fact. Episode 1 was recorded at 5 a.m., maybe 4 a.m.
Cooler.
I believe the safety episode, the bonus episode that was on safety, I believe that was recorded at like 6 a.m. on a Saturday. So I was like, that's why it sounds like I'm whispering, because I am.
Can't wake the kid.
You need to go at exactly 10:30.
No, I don't trust you guys.
When that hits 10, no matter mid-sentence, I'm hitting end broadcast at exactly 10:30.
I'll do it. But yeah, listen to Single Player. It's good.
Can people
it's
still
good
find
stuff.
Everything is awesome?
Yeah, it's still. So all the old shows that I was a part of that don't paint me in a bad picture are found on Anchor.fm as well, and also on all your podcatchers.
I loved the episode when you had someone else who had a podcast called Everything Is Awesome, but instead of suing each other, you just became friends.
Yeah. I believe you listened to Single Player because he's like, oh, that's awesome. And he does his own like RPG stuff as well.
Aww.
That's adorable.
You had a good episode with the people from Make 5 Calls.
Yes, I believe his name is Nick.
Liked it. It's really good.
You're better than me. You're better than me.
Dan Harmon.
Oh, what show is this? What show?
I don't know anymore.
Dan Harmon's ex-wife, Erin something. Did you have her on, or that was your goal? That
was Erin McGathy.
Yes.
That is to date. No offense to past guests, people included here. Erin McGathy is my favorite episode. It was like a dream get. I don't know how I made it happen, but I made it happen. Like the only one that would be cooler to get is Kev Smith, to be honest. Like she was a big get for me.
You know Chuck works for Kev Smith now, right?
I do know that.
Oh, don't tell him that.
I interviewed him on my show when he was like
you guys.
Just starting. Yeah, you did connect me with Chuck.
Oh, I know. I listened to talk about me.
he was like just like at the beginning of his career with TSD,
Yeah.
and like I follow him. You know, I obviously followed Chuck on the social medias, and I'm like, God
On the
damn,
social
he's
medias.
living my life.
We're real life friends.
That is like he's literally living the life that I want to live. Where I just am like a Kevin Smith groupie. I want to do work for Kevin Smith friends.
We're both part of the same Watch Your Writers Club, and that's like where a lot of the podcast scene is. So like we hang out in real life there, and he's a good guy.
Yeah, Chuck is real good. I like Chuck. I like.
He's really nice.
I like
We
his
interviewed him with
social
the Spider-Verse
Oh
pod.
yeah, that's right. They're in our club,
Right.
but they don't interact. Yeah, we did when we first started. We did our Spider-Verse party. They were on. Yeah,
Yeah, I remember that. I remember not being invited to that.
You know, you can't have, don't go to Revel for anything. You just come to me and I'll get it done.
actually, that's true. Oh, guys, we're getting close.
I didn't even know about it.
36.
Ah, it's an hour and 30.
Should I
So I really appreciate you being on your show, our show.
we stop it at 59 just for this?
Nice.
Okay.
All right. And this is what I like to do. At the hour and a half mark, I like to flip the script, and now I'm going to interview you guys for an hour and a half.
Fantastic. Who goes first? Or is it this? Whoever can answer the fastest.
Let's chat podcast.net.
I'll let you.
Let's